What made you decide to run for president?
Because of difficulty in the country and also in other country around us, I decided to solve this problem.
You decided by yourself?
I hope so. I hope so.
Is it more than you expected?
Yeah, it's more than that.
We traveled to Iran at a critical moment for its president, Masoud Pezeshkian.
I want to first talk about Donald Trump. He has promised increased sanctions, maximum pressure on Iran. Do you have a message for him?
What is clear thus far, we are living in Iran. Ever since the very beginning, the United States has tried to topple Iran. The trend that we see shows an increase in the levying of sanctions. We have always endeavored in the region to live in peace and tranquility. Sadly, however, the trend that they are perpetuating is to increase pressure by day. The sanctions have, in fact, made problems for us, but not in such a way for us not to be able to outlive and lead our lives into the future. You've been in Tehran for some time. You see that people are leading normal lives in plain tranquility and calm. I do hope that Trump will conduce to peace in the region and the world, not conversely contribute to bloodshed war. Our expectation is to live up to the agreements we have already reached. We do hope that that will be the way forward.
When you talk about agreements, you're talking about the JCPOA agreement of 2015?
Generally speaking, our agreements began with the JCPOA.
Are you willing now to have direct, open talks with Washington, with President Trump?
The problem we have is not in dialogue, it's in the commitments that arise from talk and dialogue that we'll have to commit to. When we engage in discussions and when we make commitments, we see that we seldom live up to them. We held talks with 5+1, lengthy talks, and we upheld all the commitments that we had to commit to. But unfortunately, it was the other party that did not live up to its promises and obligations. We wonder whether or not the same will repeat itself, even if today we engage in another type of talk or conversation or dialogue. We have this doubt that no matter how much we engage in conversation and dialogue, they are trying to topple the government, not solve the problems.
But how long can Iran exist under the current sanctions and even more? You say that your country can stand against them, but for how long? Is there a red line?
You see, we are endeavoring, despite all the pressures we're under, to lead our normal lives. We have suffered from sanctions, but at the same time, we have made great breakthroughs as a result of these sanctions. The more they levy and leverage pressure on us, the way out will be further explored. We do not seek bloodshed or conflict. What we want and what we seek is calm and tranquility. It is, in fact, the Israeli regime that is plaguing the region, digging it deeper into bloodshed and war. Netanyahu said very clearly that he will not spare any effort in order for the JCPOA not to yield the intended results.
Israel and the United States are beginning to talk about whether a strike, a military strike against Iran might be necessary to stop its nuclear program. If that were to happen, what would Iran's reaction be?
You see, naturally enough, we will react to any action. We do not fear war, but we do not seek it. Well, they have said that they want to wage war. What we have is knowledge and competence. Our knowledge and competence are indestructible. We can engage in war, of course. A country that claims to support human rights, peace, is in fact in the region committing a lot of massacre, killing more than 50,000 children, women, young and old, destroying schools and hospitals, and they're continuing that. It's by no way defendable.
Do you think an attack against Iran is likely given the current circumstances?
I solemnly hope that this will not transpire because it will be to the detriment of all the actors, not only and merely us.
President-elect Trump has said, when asked about the likelihood of war, he says anything can happen. It's a volatile situation. President Macron of France said, we're nearing a point of no return. When you hear those kind of characterizations, where do you think that leaves this tension right now?
There are tensions and they serve no party's interests. The French president has already been here and there. He has full knowledge of our military capabilities. Whatever we have done thus far has been peaceful. We do not seek to create nuclear weaponry or armament. We have never been and will not be. However, they accuse us of seeking the manufacturing of a bomb. This is a scheme they're trying to follow in order to fabricate some sort of a pretext. This is not true. By no means at all do we intend to manufacture nuclear armament. This has gone down in the agreement that we have. The most investigations and visits by the IAEA are done, in fact, in Iran. We have always lived up to our commitments. We'll continue to live up to our commitments, of course.
The West believes that Iran is perhaps days or weeks away from breaking out, from creating the physical material necessary to make a bomb.
This is a suggestion that they are putting forth. We have said time and time again that we do not seek to manufacture nuclear armament, weaponry, or bomb. Where our nuclear activities are conducted have been exposed to scrutiny. There are no reasons for such accusations. In fact, they're trying to feed into Iranophobia, and this is by no means acceptable.
Is Iran more vulnerable now, given what happened with the Bashar al-Assad regime in Syria, with the weakening of Hezbollah and Hamas? Has that left Iran in a weaker position?
I do not see any link. Some of the friends might see a link, but comparing to last year, inside the country, we're more coherent, we're more robust, we have better participation, we have a more solid security in the country.
But there are even some in your government who acknowledge that the loss of Syria was a serious defeat to Iran, certainly affecting its national security. Do you agree with that?
I don't see any association in what you said. How come we are weaker inside the country when the Syrian government is not there? After all, it was upon the request of the Syrian government that we made our presence in Syria. Now, in Syria, there are people. They can vote for their future. We want territorial integrity of Syria. We want maximum public participation of Syria, and we will continue our relations with them.
One potential threat to diplomacy could be seen as what the U.S. believes was Iran's plan to assassinate Donald Trump. Was there such a plan?
He blamed Israel and other countries.
This is yet another scheme that the foreigners are following in order to feed into Iranophobia.
You're saying there was never an Iranian plot to kill Donald Trump?
Never, by no means.
I guess the next question is, are you willing to promise that there will be no attempt on the life of Donald Trump?
Ever since the beginning, we never intended to do that.
I'd like to talk about human rights. Iran has long been criticized by human rights groups for violating individual rights, especially the government's response to the 2022 protests over headscarves. Iran has created new laws now enforcing headscarves, the wearing of them. You have resisted, though, implementing that law. What message are you hoping to send?
You see, when it comes to human rights, there is this question that I have in my mind. If there is something called human rights in the world, why is there silence towards the massacre of innocent children and women? What is happening in Iran, however, could happen anywhere in the world. There are differences of tastes and opinions around the world, and that's what makes the world go round. I do not believe that we can impose change and impose a behavior. We will, hand in hand with all ethnicities, all groups, to reach some sort of understanding and move forward.
But on this particular issue, the law governing the wearing of hijabs for women, you have taken a softer stance than your predecessor. And so my question to you is, what is the message that you want to send, not only to the Iranian people, but to people at large as they think about Iran?
I am convinced that we can never force a lifestyle. They have the right to choose their own way and say, of course, within the framework of the law and in the light of the customs and traditions that prevail in a society. That we try to force a behavior or lifestyle, I believe and I'm convinced that is not possible and will yield no other result but difference and challenge. We're trying to engage in conversation, in dialogue, and make sure that what serves the interest of all prevails in the country at large.
I'd like to turn now to the subject of press freedoms. And as I enter that, I want to be very clear, you agreed to sit down to this interview without conditions, and we appreciate that. But there is this recent example of an Italian journalist who was arrested here in December, released a few days ago on charges that weren't clear. At the same time, there was an Iranian who had been arrested by the government of Italy on behalf of the U.S., someone accused of marketing navigation equipment for drones. Was there a quid pro quo?
Concerning the journalists and the press, and the news and the freedom of expression and dialogue, we're trying our best. We have put our best foot forward in order to ensure that there is opening for press activity and to reduce the limitations that might exist. What happened to Italy for an Iranian national was there was this Iranian manufacturer and merchant. Is it illegal for our merchants to engage in trade around the world? Do we have not the right to manufacture drones? Are we stripped of the right to make sure that we develop in agriculture and elsewhere? Whenever we want to move forward, is it the United States that will always in fact withhold our progress? Is it human rights? Is it the definition of freedoms? Why should an Iranian national active in the field of electronics be arrested upon the request of the US, by the way? Which constellation of laws warrant that type of behavior?
I guess the concern is what some people refer to as hostage diplomacy. Is Iran taking people like this Italian journalist and using them to leverage the release of people you feel should be released or for whatever reason?
I do not think so. The judiciary of the Islamic Republic of Iran is an independent body. When people enter Iran, some may engage in espionage. Many individuals enter Iran under the guise of diplomacy, but they're in fact wearing the habits of evil intentions.
Let me just put a fine point on it. To be clear, does Iran engage in hostage diplomacy?
No.
No, 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 not at all.
I'd like to just go back. I want to make sure we're clear on. And if we can talk once more about the nuclear deal, is Iran willing to have direct talks with the U.S. over the future of its nuclear program?
You see, we engaged in dialogue before this. We have invariably been ready and willing to engage in dialogue. What worries us, however, is that these dialogues do not yield results. It's been a lifetime since we've been doing and engaging in dialogue, but the other party suddenly decides to change the course of action. What is put down on paper and signed need to be implemented. If the supreme leader of the Islamic Republic of Iran is given the assurance that this will be not the case, then we will engage in dialogue and talks. We have never escaped dialogue.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.